with respect to population, I mean, we're growing at close to 3% yearly. And it's very evident that the figures that are being thrown around, that by 2050 will be the third largest, the third most populous nation in the world. I mean, these are absolutely probably spot on, and we really need to address the issues. But for us, the main issues are education, healthcare, providing jobs, and feeding the numbers that we have. So with respect to education, that is clearly very big, because that also relates to how we will do with jobs and the sorts of jobs that will that will be created, and the skills, the skill set that will be necessary to meet the demands of those jobs. So we are working very hard on a new curriculum, a new educational curriculum. And a lot of that curriculum, I mean, it's what we call STEAM as opposed to STEM. You know, I mean, science, technology, engineering, and maths. But we have added arts, the arts to it, and really, a lot of this is going to be driven by technology. And we're working at the moment with some companies. We're working with Oracle, with Cisco, with MIT on developing that curriculum. The main issues here is that from the primary schools, I mean, from primary schools all the way up to secondary schools and then universities, there is a greater need now, to ensure that there is sufficient digital literacy, and that is a strong component of our curriculum. Because, of course, in the next couple of years, it's going to be extremely difficult to function without the kinds of digital skills that the new jobs will demand. But aside from that, there's also a vocational and technical component. So there is a need for skills in fabricating machines, in making machines, and making machine parts, etc. And that's also a major component of what we're trying to achieve. So, I mean, in the primary schools, for example, we're looking at teaching coding and teaching several, other digital skills. So education is big. Part of our program is modifying our classrooms, 10,000 classrooms a year. But the modification isn't, necessarily a physical modification. We're also looking at how to use technology in the classrooms. We already have a model that we're working out. There are about 10 schools that are working on that model now, with the collaboration of a few agencies and governments and companies. And we think that that will be the model for the modification of many of these schools going forward. The truth is that you cannot train the numbers that we have without technology. There's absolutely no way. And we've had some form of a foretaste of that with what we call the NPower scheme, which is a post-tertiary jobs program, which we have in Nigeria at the moment. We've engaged 500,000 graduates and some non-graduates, each of them has a tablet, has a device such as I have here, and it has all of the training material. It has digital training material, entrepreneurship material, etc. Quite a wide range of material. But the interesting part of this is that we actually engaged all of them online, and a lot of the training is taking place through our open portal and also the devices that they have. So we've been able to do that for 500,000 people. Some are being trained in public health issues, some extension farmers, some are extension workers in the farms, and most are teachers in part of what we call the NTEACH program. So we think that going forward, there's no way we're going to be able to educate the numbers we have without technology, and some of what we're doing at the moment is very helpful in that regard. So then there's healthcare, and with healthcare, to cut a long story short, where we're going is national health insurance. At the moment, we have national health insurance, but it's not compulsory. So we're looking at compulsory national health insurance. And we're also looking at how to ensure that, how to pay the premiums, especially for the poorest. So we have a co-payment arrangement government will provide payments of premiums or free medical care for 40%, which is the poorest segment, and the other 60% will be compulsory co-payments.
That's informal workers and formal workers. That 40%.
Informal and formal workers, yes. So we expect that the resources, well, that the money that we're able to make from national health insurance is really the way to fund medical care. At the moment, most people, most medical people who resort for, who seek medical help pay out of pocket. And obviously that's one of the reasons why we have the poor indices that we're experiencing at the moment, the poor health indices we're experiencing. So we think that health insurance will resource will resource healthcare and help greatly, not just in rewarding healthcare practitioners, but also in resourcing the hospitals and helping most of our people to get the kind of health care that they may need.
Just back on the education issue for a moment. Several countries in Africa now are introducing free, universal free primary and universal free secondary education. And I know, given your population, you've got a median age of, I guess, 18 or slightly less. So we're talking about maybe 60 million people. Do you have targets in your mind on universal primary education and universal secondary education, free at the point of use? Do you have a sense that you can go to your electorate in these coming elections and say, look, we can't do it today, we're doing 10,000 schools a year for the next 4 years, but there's a target by 2025 or something where we'll be able to stand up and say, well, we're going to deliver this to you, high quality universal education?
Yeah. Well, what we have is a 10-year program. Right. What we have is a 10-year program, but we expect that it will be a lot. We expect to even be able to deliver in a much shorter time. Yeah. But the main issue really is that funding education is not just going to be budget, because really, I mean, it's extremely difficult to fund just from budget. And also in Nigeria, the primary education and secondary education is state funded, really. And of course, we have a few federal government schools. But the kinds of arrangements that we're trying to work out now is how the federal government will partner with the states to fund primary and secondary education, so that the federal government is taking a substantial part of educational funding. And the state governments, are, doing their bit, but the federal government is also partnering. So we expect that with those kinds of arrangements, we'll be able to do a lot more. At the moment, the federal government supports state education through agencies such as TED Fund, which does intervention funding for schools, UBEC, which does intervention funding also to a certain extent for primary schools and all that. So the whole idea is that with federal and state funding, with that kind of co-funding arrangement, we will be able to deliver, high quality education, especially given the curriculum that we're trying to develop, and teacher training, which is something I had left out, and teacher training is, of course, a very key component of what we're trying to achieve.
And there's a lot of private schools growing up in Nigeria. And what I hear from friends in Nigeria is there's a concern that some of those schools are not serving the people very well. They're certainly doing very well in terms of economics and finance. But is there a need for tougher regulation of the private universities and the private schools, do you think?
Well, I think what we will, I think, yes, there is a need for a good measure of monitoring, but my sense of how private education will go, especially tertiary education with the private universities and all that, is that competition will eventually prove, will show which will be the best and which people should go to. There's a fairly liberal, approach to setting up private universities, in the sense that there are no real restrictions on numbers anywhere. although the regulations are quite clear, you're supposed to, and some people argue that the regulations are too stringent, but I think the truth of the matter is that ultimately competition will be the way to go for private institutions. And of course, much more robust monitoring will be helpful. What we've seen also is that there are too many general type universities where the curriculum is too broad. And one of the key things that we're talking about now is how to direct universities to the areas of public need, to the areas of the needs of the nation. So we'd like to see more universities in the areas of science, engineering, and all of that. And also to promote some of the, for instance, agriculture is one of the key areas for us, technology, So we'd like to see more universities investing more in those. But of course, for the universities, especially the private universities, their whole, when they look at their figures, obviously they'd want some of the more popular disciplines, which may not necessarily tally with our requirements as a nation or our needs as a nation. But I think we can generally drive private universities in the direction of national needs and national requirements. Yes.
Yeah. You've landed here, as I said, in the middle of some political turmoil. But overall, across Europe and across North America, certainly that big bit in the middle, United States, there's a lot of political turmoil. And I'd say it's no exaggeration to say democracy is under fire for not delivering, for not representing. We've got a situation in this country where the parliament believes one thing, the people have had a referendum, they take. I'm just wondering what you think the health of democracy is in Africa, and particularly Nigeria. Specifically, you're in an election campaign. It's going to cost the country a lot of money. The last election was seen as pretty good in terms of the transition period and the whole conduct of it and the Performance Electoral Commission. Do you think Nigeria, the population, is being well served by this current election campaign? Is it bringing out the issues? Is it going to improve the society somehow?
Yeah, I mean, if they vote for us, it will be well served. But quite frankly, I think that in some senses, I think democracy, in the way we know it, might well be under significant threat. Yeah. Especially because of some of what we see all over the world with the identity politics, populism, nationalism, etc. I think that is a significant problem, right, because it is crowding out the real issues, right, and you'll see even from the tone of political campaigns, even in Africa, that there is a lot of resort now to identity politics, especially ethnicity and religion. And these are dangerous trends, and of course, some of the poor example, I believe, that's coming out of well-established democracies is not helpful at all. So my sense of it is that we really have to survive this period of identity politics and all of the problems that populism and all of that bring about, because really, I mean, it's difficult sometimes to get to the issues.
You made a pretty clear statement, I think, a couple of years ago at the graduation ceremony at a military college in Nigeria. I mean, I think you said we've really got to get beyond identity politics. Yes. Is that right? Yes. And do you think that, how did that go down in the country?
Well, you know how those things are. Everyone
leapt at it.
Yes, everyone looks at the other person and says that obviously he's not talking about me. He's talking about someone else. So I think, but I think the point is important to be made, and I don't think we should wait until things go really bad before we recognize that this is a potential threat, not just to democracy, but to the survival of the republic itself. So I think we must do a lot more in terms of making this clear. What we've tried to do as much as possible, at least from our side, is to try and stick to the issues and emphasize that religion and ethnicity are really quite irrelevant on the long, because the main issues are not, hunger or poverty really doesn't know religion or for that matter, where people are from. So I think, we really have to stick to the issues. Otherwise, we might find that we're making wrong choices and we're doing the wrong things, because we're paying attention to the wrong issues.
If you look at the curve, since 50 years ago, there was the tragic civil war in Nigeria. There was a textbook reconciliation process after that, and people thought there was an upward ascent after that. You text the temperature today. What do you think the country's moving beyond that sort of politics? Do you find people are much more concerned with issues, or there's a resort to mobilizing identities and regions?
I think that just as I've said, there is a danger, a strong, because it is almost the intuitive way of dealing with issues to say that it is because I am this or I am that, as opposed to looking at issues objectively. So there is that very strong current. There's no question at all. There's that very strong current. But I also think that young people are better able, I think, to understand these issues, and we're trying to take the message across to young people.
Urbanization. Helpful in that regard, do you think?
I'm sorry?
Urbanization helpful, the growth of the cities, rapid growth of the cities.
It is. Unfortunately, also, we're challenged by some of the mischief on social media, and so sometimes you get heightened by all sorts of stuff that go on social media, fake news, and all of that. So there are, it's an interesting new mix, I suppose, and I think we really have to ride this particular storm, and we're hoping to find more responsible voices in the political space who are saying the right things and who are emphasizing the right things rather than looking at short-term gains. So
talking of responsible voices, you said people will be well served if they voted for APC. Do you think that this time around the people have got a clear choice and not an ideological choice, a policy choice? They can look at the APC and they say, you're one, look at our record, this is what we're planning to do, we're planning to do a lot more of that. And then look at the PDP and their candidate, Atiku Abubakar, say he's going to take the country in a completely different direction. You've got to make up your minds. How do you see the election come? Do you see it in those sort of terms?
Yeah. For us, clearly that's what we're trying to do anyway, to define, what this election is about. It is about, and in my view, it's about whether we're going forward or going backward. I think that really is what the elections will be about. And it is in my view, the PDP had been in power for 16 years. And within that period, Nigeria, in fact, within the last 4-year period, Nigeria earned its highest in terms of oil revenues. And, that's an objective fact. Oil prices were between 100 and 114. And this is just, a snapshot example, between $100 and $114 a barrel from 2010 from 2011 to about 2014, which is really the highest, and about $383 billion US. And really, there wasn't very much to show for that in terms of infrastructure, in terms of anything else, And we're saying that in the comparative period that we've seen, we've earned something in the order of about $120 billion. But just in terms of investment in infrastructure, where we've invested 2.7 trillion naira in infrastructure,